Welcome to this week's MoneyFit Live webinar. My name is Todd Christensen, Education Manager at MoneyFit and author of Everyday Money for Everyday People. Today's topic is your credit and job interviews. Here's what you need to know and how you can prepare so that your credit plays a positive role and not a negative role in the job and hiring process. Let's go ahead and jump right in here. Here's the principle. Your score or your report, your credit, which one has an effect on, could have a potential effect on your ability to get a job. Let's talk about the difference, first of all, between scores and reports. Your credit report is a list of all your accounts and the activities on those accounts. Your score, based on that credit report information, then is a typically three digits number that tries to predict your likelihood of defaulting on payments in the future. That's what a credit score is. It is used for other things, including in in car insurance and applying for an apartment. But here's the thing: your credit score is not used in the job application or hiring process or the interview. That is your credit report. And it's not every time. But your credit report can play a role in the hiring process, not your score. There's a lot of misinformation out there about it, but if you're in HR, you know that there are laws against using credit score. And even some of the information that's typically on a credit report cannot be used in the hiring process. So who is using credit reports as part of the hiring process? For a long time now, these particular types of employers, you just count on them. If you're applying for a job with one of these industries, count on them checking your credit. Law enforcement, financial sector, the government, if you're applying for a government job or if you're applying anywhere that requires security clearance, they're just going to, almost by default, just before they hire you, they might go through the whole process of interviewing you, qualifying you, and then before they make the final job offer, they'll probably include a credit check as part of their background check. So who uses what? About 25 to 30% of all employers include your credit report on some of their applicants and some of their job interviews. So not everybody is using your credit report when you're applying for a job, but 25 to 30%, that's a pretty good chunk, 1 out of 4, 1 out of 3, roughly. Now, 6 to 16%, depending on the report that you read or the study that you read, are going to pull a credit report and include it in every job application and for every applicant. And it doesn't matter the industry. I remember being teaching a class once and talking about this, and somebody had mentioned that they had just applied to be a cashier at a local bookstore. So that's been a few years, obviously. There aren't hardly local bookstores left. And as a cashier, she had her credit report checked and included as in her background. So it is there, and it's never certain who's checking it. You should just assume and be prepared for that likelihood. All right, here's the things that are not included in your credit history that is part of an application process. It cannot have your date of birth on it. That would open you up to open the potential prospective employer up to the possibility of age discrimination. So there is no date of birth included on that application. Same thing with marital status. It's not going to include if you're married. Most credit reports will include a name of a spouse. If you report on a credit application somewhere that you're married, that information might end up on your credit report, but not on the report that's used by potential or prospective employers. It does not come with the score. Your score is not part of it. And it does not include account numbers, so that they don't have you don't have to worry about, oh, this potential employer now has all my credit account information. No, they don't. That is not the consumer reporting agencies that gather and collect and provide this information. Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, they do not include your account numbers in such reports. All right. What is it that the lender is learning from your report? Why are they caring? Why are they looking here? So let's just go through some possible explanations. It's going to vary by creditor. But here's some of the things they can look at and come to a conclusion using your credit. Do they see a current mortgage account on there? They can assume that you're going to be rather stable, a little more stable than somebody who rents or who has rented multiple times over the last year or two. Stability is important to employers, so they want to see that. That doesn't mean that if you don't have a mortgage, you're not going to get the job. That does not what that means. But that's just one of these things that they can look at. Do you have student loans? Well, they can deduce that, hey, if they've got a student loan, then yes, they are likely have been to college, and they say they have a degree, and we're going to assume that they are qualified. That doesn't mean if you have a degree and don't have any student loans, because nearly half of students don't have student loans, that doesn't mean that it's going to hurt you, but that's just something they can see. Do they see late payments? Well, it's going to bring into question dependability. Are you paying your debts on time? Will you be showing up on time? Will you do what you agree to do? Do they see a lot of employer applications when you apply for a job that might show up on a credit report? If they see that, they might wonder, okay, are they applying for a lot of new applications at other jobs, other places? What's the motivation for applying for us? Do they see overdraft issues that have gone to collections perhaps? There might, again, come up with the question of the stability factor. Do they see a lot of high credit card debt? That they worry. That's one of the main reasons why potential prospective employers check your credits, because they worry about the potential for employee theft. And the higher your debt, the higher likelihood somebody is to feel desperate enough to steal from their employer. And then collections. Do they have a lot of collections on their account? This one also makes a lot of sense. If you are having to field collection calls during work hours, you're going to be less productive than somebody who is equally qualified but doesn't have to take those phone calls and deal with that stress of having to pay back collection accounts. Okay, now for the conspiracy theorists out there, here's some things that you might worry about, and it could happen. I'm not saying it won't happen. How long you've had credit. If it shows that you've had accounts for 30, 40 years that you been using, they can determine that your age by easily adding at least 20 years generally. So there can be some age discrimination going on anyway. Store accounts. This just will depend on the creditor and on the consumer or potential employee. They can see the types of accounts that they have on there. You're not going to show the account numbers, but if they're hiring you and they see that you have or two different employees looking or applying for the same job, and one has Home Depot accounts and the other has Victoria's Secrets, they might be able to take that information and decide, well, which one seems more appropriate for our application or our position. Should they? Probably not. But can they? They might. And if they see multiple addresses, especially if it's within a 1 or 2 year period, they can assume that pretty unstable home life, and unstable home life is the main reason employees are less productive on the job, whether it's a divorce, whether it's just being able to keep a place to live. Instability is a major issue for employers. Okay, so what are some of your rights when it comes to credit reports and job applications. One, is it legal? Yes, it is. It does vary by state. There are a certain number of states that don't, to one extent or another, have some, at least as of this recording in 2020, that have some issues or block some uses of your credit report during the application process, and in some cases completely. They do have to get written consent, and it can't just be signing your name at the bottom and have this hidden up there somewhere in the fine print that you are giving permission. No, it has to be a separate form that you fill out in person, printed, or a separate form online, giving them permission to include your credit as part of the background check. So if somebody's using it and you did not give permission, there's an issue there. But generally, most employees just skip right over it and just start signing it and are not paying attention. Pay attention, include it. If you're going to include your signature, you want them to include it. Bankruptcy, be aware, if you file for bankruptcy, that cannot be a factor in deciding whether or not they're going to hire you. Credit, yes, and bankruptcy definitely affects credit. But just the fact that you filed for bankruptcy, that they can't not hire you just for that reason. Okay, there are 9 state laws, as I mentioned. You can look up online which states permit it or don't permit it. Probably one of the best places I've seen, although it was a little dated, was on nolo.com, N-O-L-O. That has some reliable information. All right. You can always put check your credit for free ahead of time. Before you apply for a loan or a job, or before you go on into an interview and give permission for them to do a background check, check your credit at annualcreditreport.com. You can get all 3 credit reports, or reports from all 3 consumer reporting agencies, for free all at once, or you can get one now, another later. But I would recommend, if you're about to apply for a job, get all 3, make sure it's accurate, and then if you have to, if you find an error, dispute it, get rid of it. This process is fairly simple. It takes 5 to 15 minutes typically. Whichever reporting agency had the error on your credit report, you go back to that. So Experian.com or TransUnion.com or Equifax.com. Right on the home page, they have an error dispute center or a link there. Click on that, log in with your user ID and password for that consumer reporting agency, or using the report number at the top of your credit report. It'll pull up your credit report. You go down to the error, you click on it, and it'll say, why are you disputing it? You choose the reason from the 10 or 20 different drop-down reasons that it gives you. You can add some documentation if you have it. If it's showing that you haven't made a payment, or that it has a huge balance when you paid it off 3 months ago, 4 months ago, then you might want to upload a documentation showing that payment receipt. Keep in mind, though, that creditors only report about once every 1 to 3 months, usually once a month. If you paid off a balance last week and it's still showing the balance, that's normal. You can try to dispute it, but by the time the dispute goes through, they will have changed it anyway, typically. You can also add a personal statement to your credit report. This does not have any kind of effect on your credit rating, but anyone that's viewing it personally with human eyes can look at it and take it into consideration. Typically, what I recommend is only use your statement to explain inaccurate information and not accurate information. If you had to file for bankruptcy because of medical reasons, something beyond your control, don't try and explain that, because it might just generate more questions than it answers. But if your accounts always seem to get mixed up with an aunt or an uncle or a cousin that has a name very similar to yours, or a neighbor that whatever reason that always gets mixed up, and you're constantly having to dispute that, some errors related to that, you might want to add a statement. Such and such an account belongs to a cousin by the same name, and that way you can explain a negative if you need to. As you get ready for a job interview, be prepared. Get current on your payments. Getting caught up on late payments is probably the best thing you can do to build or rebuild your credit. Pay down your debts is something else that's really important. Pay down that balances as much as you can. And then if there is some mistakes that you've made, we've all been there, done that. Just be upfront and honest when you're in the interview. And if the background check information comes up, or if you feel that you need to bring it up, you say, hey, I know you're going to do a credit report, include part of my credit report in your background check, just so you know, and show the positive that you're taking from that. 4 years ago or 3 years ago, I got myself into a lot of credit card debt. I've set up repayment plans. They're under control. I am in charge of it, and things are going well. But if you see that, that's why that's there. Or there was a collection account from 3 years ago that I paid off and got current on, or got it taken care of. Potential, or the interviewers are going to appreciate your honesty and take more confidence knowing that you have gotten things under control. If you are not hired, and it's because of your credit, they have to notify you. And they'll notify you in advance before they tell you you're not hired. They'll tell you that they'll send you a notification. This is rare, but they'll send you a notification that there's an adverse action coming based on your credit report. That gives you some time to pull your credit report and find out, is there negative information that's in error and that you can dispute? If there is, you're going to notify both the Consumer Reporting Agency to get that disputed, and you're going to let the potential employer know that, hey, I just found some errors, and can we look at this again once it's been resolved? Otherwise, if you're not hired, you also, just so you know, you have a right to pull your free credit report again, because annualcreditreport.com gives you free credit report once every 12 months from each of those credit bureaus. But if you've been denied employment because of it, ask them, or which credit reporting agency or consumer reporting agency did you use? Then they'll have to let you know, and you can get a free credit report directly from that consumer reporting agency. If there was something in this video or in this webinar that you found of benefit to you, please click the like button in our YouTube channel and then subscribe to our channel. It'll help YouTube know that this information is helpful and should be put out there in front of people who are looking for this type of help. So thank you, we appreciate that. If you'd like a certificate of completion, you can go to moneyfit.org/live. There'll be a button there below the current webinar. Click on it for certificate. You put in your name, how you want it on your certificate. You put in your email address where you want it sent. You indicate that this is the credit and job interview or job application webinar from November of 2020, and it'll bring up a field in which you put the passcode, which is Jobs 2020. No uppercase, it's all lowercase, no spaces, no dashes, dots, anything. It's JOBS 2020. Click submit. That certificate will be generated and in your inbox about the time you get back over to your inbox pretty immediately. If there's anything we can help you with, any questions, any concerns you have that we can help address, please call me. There's my phone number, there's my email address, and we're happy to hear from you, happy to help however we can. Thank you for joining me, and I sure wish you a great rest of your day.